Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Horse's Mouth Live, the Extraordinary Advisor Show. And as always, I have great information to help you in every area of your life, especially your business. We have a really important conversation today around talking about fees and value that you add. As money people, advisors tend to be hopefully comfortable talking about parts of their clients' finances and hopefully making it more comfortable for clients to talk about that, although maybe not always. Um, but perhaps you haven't thought about how comfortable you are having the fee discussion with your clients, whether that's financial planning fees, AUM fees. And it's so important, and it's important for advisors to be able to not only be able to communicate their value, but know it inside to be having effective conversations around that. And probably the only person I know in the industry that really talks about this is Kathleen Burns Kingsbury, who we're so lucky to have here today. And Kathleen's been, this is, I think, our third time having her on the show. It's been a while. And you probably know of her in the industry, but let me give you a little bit more of her official background. She's not your average money mindset coach. She's a pioneering force in the realm of women in money, setting her apart from conventional counterparts in the industry. She has over 18 years of experience. She's dedicated herself to empowering women across finance, business, and entrepreneurship. She's a mentor for women entrepreneurs. She offers invaluable guidance drawing from her extensive background in psychology, as well as psychology and client communication. And her work extends to working with all financial advisors, helping them to navigate the complexities of wealth management while fostering strong client relationships. She's been recognized in all of the big publications like New York Times, Wall Street Journal. She's the author of several books. And the second edition of her latest book, Breaking Money Silence, is just hot off the press. And it's really a fabulous book because this concept of talking about how hard it is for people to talk about money is something people don't talk about. So today, yeah, our conversation is really going to focus on unleashing your true value to earn more. So, Kathleen, yay, thank you for being here.
Thank you, and thank you for having me back. I wonder if it's like Saturday Night Live and eventually I get a jacket if I, uh, come as a guest 5 times or
Well,
more, but
we'll see if we have our 50th anniversary. I don't know that I'll be doing it that long. We've been around for a while, but okay. So why do you think it's so important for advisors to be thinking about breaking silence around fees with clients?
well, I think a couple of things. One is that clients themselves are very anxious or very confused about the fees that advisors charge. So they have a lot of questions, whether they are speaking up and asking them or waiting for the advisor to invite them to have a conversation. Just know it's on a lot of clients' minds. And I think secondly, advisors, depending on, where you've worked in the field, how you charge, for some, even if you're experienced, it could be a new conversation to be transparently talking about fees. And I do think the way that we present our value helps us close more sales, but also helps reassure the client that they've made a good buying decision. So I think there's some anxiety and some discomfort on advisor side and client side. And so spending some time to really think about it and how you're going to frame it and how you're going to make sure that you communicate your value is really important.
I imagine with all of the kind of press and advertisements out there about fees and fiduciaries, and it's really complicated for clients to understand this. Do you find that advisors tend to feel either defensive or secretive about this? I mean, it feels like there'd be a lot of different kinds of emotions or things that come up for advisors around this discussion.
Absolutely. I mean, in working and coaching with my clients, what I find is it's a variety of reactions, but rarely is it the person that's like, I'm totally comfortable talking about my value and communicating my fees. More often, it's somebody who says, I know it's really confusing for the client. How do I have a clear way of communicating the fees? Or um, I'm newer to this and I really fear that when I bring up the fees, that's when I'm going to lose my prospect and they're not going to convert. And the last thing I hear a lot is a lot of anxiety or concern around, well, when they give me pushback or when I need to raise my fees and they're like, why? You're providing the same service. How do I handle that? So it's really thinking about what your mindset is around fees, what your pricing or value strategy is, and then how do you clearly and confidently communicate that to your prospects and clients. So, in a long winded way, yes, it's very emotional.
So, what are some ways that advisors can just start with their mindset around communicating fees?
Well, one of the things I encourage every advisor to do is to understand their money personality. So when I'm working with clients, I do a money archetype assessment. And basically, it's to identify what are your automatic thoughts and beliefs about money and your value, and how does that impact how you naturally or unconsciously communicate your fees. And what I find is there's certain types of money archetypes that struggle a little bit more than others. One in particular, so is called a nurturing money archetype. And as its name sounds, this is the person that's very relationship oriented, makes a great advisor. But when it comes to really standing up for themselves and their value, it can be a little tricky with their mindset. So I think the first step is understanding your money mindset and your money personality. I think the other thing is often people will be like, I blew it. The prospect didn't hire me, or they pushed back too much and I immediately discounted my fees. Well, you didn't blow it. Having a success mindset is realizing each and every fee conversation is an opportunity to learn. Some are going to go better than others, but typically, when we do something that we're not 100% happy with, that's where most of the learning occurs. So, in my work, I really help people embrace that as an opportunity of learning, as opposed to an opportunity to beat yourself up.
What I love about that part of your work, Kathleen, is I suspect that advisors realize that clients have money mindsets and they have beliefs they bring to their decision making, or at least hopefully they're aware of that. I suspect that most advisors aren't as aware of what their money mindsets are because they might be really great technically or have lots of credentials. So, have you found that that's very illuminating for advisors to realize where they're coming from with their money mindset?
Yes, and all of my work that I've done in this field has always had a component of increasing advisors' self-awareness. And I think it really helps to understand how you approach money, how you approach money conversations and fee conversations in particular, so you can understand what your strengths and your challenges are. What I love about the work that I do around money archetypes is there isn't any bad or better money archetype. There's just the one that you have. And so it's working within that to be as confident and clear as you can be. The other thing is when advisors start to understand their own money mindset and how it impacts how they show up for clients, they also can see the value of or be able to start to predict and think about, oh, what's my client's money mindset and how does that impact the fee conversation, but also just how they're going to hear my recommendations. So, I'm a money psychology geek, but I just love that piece of the work.
Yeah, I find it fascinating ever since I was starting as an advisor, and then now since I've kind of moved on from that part of my professional life, how people make decisions around money and how what our relationship with money is, to me, is so fascinating and so impactful. Um, so if an advisor notices that they have resistance on this, or perhaps they don't have a success mindset, they tend to beat themselves up about how things have gone in the past. What are some things that they can do to start to shift that?
Sure. I think the first thing is to really get clear on what's the value you provide. Yes, you're providing advising services, planning services, but beyond that, when we think about value And in our client's eyes, there's the skills and knowledge that you have and the expertise. That's important. That's like baseline. But why do they hire you? They hire you because of what I call your superpower. Like authentically, what do you bring to each relationship that is a little bit different than maybe your counterpart? It's not different bad or different good. It's just different. And so if we spend some time really thinking about what how do we make our clients feel? Why is it that they hire us versus someone else? That is a really important piece of the puzzle. So, figuring out what your unique value is. I think the second thing is really thinking about what are all the services or what are all the ways in which you're helping clients. And actually, a great activity is just to list them all out because we make assumptions in this field that our prospects or clients really know what we're doing when we take them on as a client. And I can tell you, having worked with a lot of clients, most of them don't know. So it's not like you're going to show that laundry list necessarily to everybody, but at least you're going to get clear on how you're helping them. And I think the last thing is to really have a strategy around your pricing. And if you work for yourself, this is even more important, like a written policy. It's not that you're necessarily showing it to your clients, but when it's written down, then you're going to be more consistent in how you're charging your fees and how you're connecting that to the value that you provide that individual or that couple or family.
With the advisor's superpowers, that's something you recommend your clients actually, communicate with their clients, or is it something that's, an inner knowing to help them feel their value more?
I actually think it's something that they should communicate to their clients. Now, I wouldn't necessarily meet with someone and say, "Hey, my superpower is," but I'll give you an example from my own life, right? So, when I started speaking and training in this field, my background is in psychology. I have totally leaned into that background of being clinically trained and understanding the industry. But when I started out, I used to hide the fact that I came from the world of psychology. I didn't realize that was my superpower. So now, if I'm talking to somebody and wanting to coach them, I might say something along the lines of, one of the things that sets me apart is that I have a real understanding of human behavior based on my 15 years of clinical experience, blah, 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 blah. And that is really a way to kind of communicate that superpower. So it's thinking about, how do you do that? For an advisor, it might be, Ellen, something along the lines of, my clients tell me they always feel better when they walk out the door. And they love that I provide a great summary of, next steps. And I really find that that sets me apart, something like that. So, really figuring out what that superpower is and figuring out how to tie that to what your clients want and need from you based on your discovery process.
What I like about both those examples is that it's a feeling place and also a tactical place.
Yes, you
So,
have to tie it. It
my
can't just be
clients feel
feeling.
so much better, and this is what they get that is part of the reason they feel better, but it's also an interpersonal skill. Yeah.
Yes, and I think, Ellen, just to jump in real quick, I think advisors are pretty good at the tactical piece. It's the feeling piece because people make buying decisions based on emotions, not just the tactics, but tying them together is really key.
Yeah, I love that. And, um, I have experienced when I've talked about people's advisors' superpowers with them, they tend to focus on the academic part
Mhm.
or the thing that really isn't so unique. One thing I'll hear, and maybe it's just a framing thing, is they'll say, "Oh, I take complex concepts and make them easy for people to understand." And I'm like, "Okay, that could be a superpower," although lots of people say they're good at that. But it also is important to communicate in a way that's not insulting to your client
Hmm.
because you're so dumb. You have to explain, not you would ever say
Yep.
it that way, but I think it's a marketing and a value conversation.
Well, it comes to
So
trust. It comes to trust. So the credentials, which are important, that is competency-based trust. So they're gonna look for that. Benevolent-based trust is the trust where you are actually, fostering a feeling and showing that you care. And again, 2 types of trust. So focusing on that benevolent-based trust is key.
And I would say that probably most advisors aren't trained in knowing how to do that. And that's some of that, or focusing on that. Maybe they intuitively know how, but the technical side is what I've seen is where a lot of advisors spend their time and attention. But the interpersonal side, they just assume they're good at or it's fine and
Yes,
don't work
and
with
if
someone
you
like you.
right, and top producers tend to be the ones that, have the people skills, so it is kind of the icing on the cake. You don't necessarily have to have it, but it's gonna make for a better business, it's gonna make for a better experience for your clients, and often, especially next generation advisors, I think really are having fun with it, and so it's exciting to see that shift.
So, what are some ways that advisors can start to identify their unique value, and how to and really use that and communicate it with potential clients or clients?
Well, after they do the exercise of really looking at what their skills and their knowledge and their superpower is, I use a value formula where it's a statement and you develop a bunch of these value formulas. And so, for instance, it could be, I'm an advisor, I'm a certified financial planner with 20 years of experience. I find that clients really love the money psychology piece that I incorporate because it helps them make better financial decisions and feel better at the end of the day. And as a result, I've done, and you fill in whatever the result might be, whether it's making better decisions, accumulating more wealth, whatever it might be. So I use this formula to really help them start to frame different value statements. And why do we do a bunch of them? Because different clients are different. So you always want to factor in what's going to make the most sense for that person sitting in front of you. I think the other thing is thinking about when you are overcoming objections or there's resistance to your fee, like why do you charge that much if the guy down the street charges this much? If you can come back instead of defensive, come back with a value formula. I mean, you make it your own that really says, this is why I charge this way, and this is the strategy that I have, and this is the value that I provide. And the more you can calmly have that conversation with your clients, the better off you'll be. It's not always easy, but a big part of it is practicing. And that's what I really work with people on. How do you practice? So when you get in that scenario, Ellen, it may not be perfect, but at least you've heard yourself say it before. And then you can tweak it and get better and better at breaking money silence.
Yeah, that and noticing, I imagine your clients, you've helped them because they've practiced to notice when they start to feel defensive about that. Like, well, I've done all these things for you and I'm so good and I'm a CFP and I should be getting charged this much. Or you're still not paying me enough for all
Yeah.
that I do.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. And we
so if
often are
some,
resentful, though. We're often resentful when we haven't taken care of ourselves in that way. So I find that with practice, that resentment goes away. And I think when we're breaking money silence, especially around our worth, it feels so personal. And so part of it is really understanding this isn't personal. This is about you and your service. It's not about you as a human being. That can be helpful as well.
I love that. Um, so in terms of should an advisor wait till the client brings up the fee conversation? I mean, I know compliance wise they have to have these conversations, but do you recommend like a wait till the client brings it up, or do you recommend that an advisor starts that conversation before it's asked? What do you find is best practice?
I think best practice is to proactively bring up the conversation. You're going to want to think about what is your process of meeting people and onboarding people. And so I'm not sure I wouldn't encourage people to bring it up first thing, like, oh, by the way, this is my fee. Can you meet it? But to have a conversation, to connect with that individual and to get a sense of what they're looking for. Then when you bring up the fee, you can tie that to what's important to them. So you're making it personal, you're customizing it. You also can get to a place when you do that discovery of like, maybe I'm not going to bring up my fee with this client because maybe this isn't the client I want to take on. But I do think proactively bringing it up is the professional's responsibility, but don't lead with it. Show your value, ask a lot of questions, and then bring it up as you're trying to close that sale.
We were talking before we went live about how a lot of times clients don't even know, let's say someone's been a client for several years, they don't actually even know all that goes on that the advisor does for them. So let's say someone's not an initial conversation, but how do you recommend that advisors have that conversation with an existing client?
I think you can start to educate your existing clients, maybe during an annual meeting or maybe sending out a notification. You could say, we just want you to see our updated list of services and really, list all the things that you do. Or you could have a conversation with them about, we have offered this, this, and that. I just want to let you know we also are doing this behind the scenes. And do you have any questions about that? The last way, and I often tell people this when they see me on a podcast or a live stream, blame me. I saw this podcast or I saw this live stream with Kathleen Burns Kingsbury. And one of the things I realized is we haven't really talked about all the services that I provide and the value. And I wanted to know if you had any questions. So there's a variety of ways to bring it up and do it in a way that's professional and about the client, not just about you.
I have one advisor who I coach who every year shows the client how what's been done and how much they've grown. So not just their asset growth, but we've taken care of your estate plan and we've taken care of XYZ, like lists,
Love
and
it.
keeps a running list for them. And I thought that was so brilliant because it's codifying all the progress the client has made and also um, giving the client the understanding of all that the advisor has been doing for them. And I thought her plan was a beautiful, brilliant plan of how to
Love
show
it.
that value on a regular basis.
'Cause if
Yeah.
you put on your client hat, I don't know about you, but, like, I'm a client of a financial team. I don't remember all they've done during the year. It's same thing if you work for a leadership team, it's letting them know what you've done. It's so that communication of value, it doesn't have to be this conflict. It can be just a moment of sharing of, like, "Look at what we've accomplished together and how great."
And not only does that show your value, but it also makes the client feel better
Yeah.
about what they've done because there's so much shame around money for people in the industry. I think is a lot of like hopefully not advisors directly, but there's a lot of finger wagging at people like, you haven't done this and we didn't. And so I would think that also is a way to have the client feel better about themselves, which ultimately makes them feel better about the advisor. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think there is a big myth out there amongst clients that, "What am I paying for?" Like, they get defensive in an opposite way, like, "Why am I paying?" And it really comes from not knowing as opposed to not valuing, so it's your job to let them know.
Beautiful. Um, Final thoughts you want to make sure that you share with the audience today. And I'll just jump in. Besides, there's a new chapter. This is a re release of Breaking Money Silence, which is on knowing your value. But specifically for advisors, any last thoughts you want to share today, Kathleen?
Well, I think one of the things that I think is really important is if you haven't really delved into your money personality and how you are thinking about talking about fees, that it's worth taking some time to do that. And so people can certainly reach out and contact me and we can figure out a way to do that. I often do that in a very short couple of sessions, and it can be really beneficial in the long run for folks. So that would be my call to action.
I love that. I love that. My call to action is go grab this book. It's great. Even if you feel like so grounded in your value, there's a lot here about how clients are thinking about money and why they don't talk about it. They don't talk about it with their kids. They don't talk about it with their parents. They don't talk about it with each other. And it'll give you some great tools to support your clients even more. And please connect with Kathleen on LinkedIn. I love following what she's up to there. And if people want to find out more about you, where should they go?
The easiest place to go is my website, which is kbkwealthconnection.com. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you as always. I'm so grateful that we met many years ago at a conference where we were both speaking and we've stayed in each other's lives. And I love all the resources and I learned so much from you, Kathleen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Thanks for breaking money silence with me. I appreciate you.
And thank you for watching and listening here today. Again, my name is Ellen Rogin, and you can find out more about me at ellenrogin.com. That's ELLENROGIN. And if you go to ellenrogin.com/horse's mouth, you can download my special report, What Extraordinary Advisors Know That Others Don't, and soon to be released a new special report, but you'll have to wait for that one. And the question to ponder today is, how are you breaking money silence and grounding in your own value? And remember, be great and create great every